spoke about the midah that is called emet, truth. And I have quoted the verse saying, "L'olam yeh adam yireh shamayim baseter umodeh al haemet bilvavo." A person should always be God-fearing. When baseter means that nobody sees him, seter means in a concealed way. When it's hidden, it means in other ways. You have to be God-fearing when there's no people looking at you. As I said many times, when you're next to people, you are very pious. And in your own closed room, you behave different. But then the verse continues by saying, "Umodeh al haemet," and admits on the truth. To reach to a point that you know how to admit, if you're able to reach to that point, you're already above most people in the planet and in a very high level, because most people will find it very hard to admit. Now, why is it important to us to admit? Because 90%, and I'm throwing a number, don't look for sources for that, that's my opinion, but based on teachings. You know what, I will take back the 90%. The majority of your judgment will be removed by the Master of the universe if you admit. And that will also work in this world. And that's always what I tell my kids. Admit, be a man, take responsibility. Don't give me all these excuses. I don't need excuses. I know you're guilty. Admit. You admit, I will let you go. And you know what? The Master of the universe is the exact same thing. He tells you in another word, be a man. You can do the time, don't do the crime. And if you at least admit, then I will give you a huge discount. But admit. So we spoke many times about the power of thanking the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Admitting and thanking in Hebrew is almost the same word, which means lehodot. Hodah, I mean, here it's a little bit different. It sounds similar. Lehodot, to thank, is without an aleph. Lehodot, when admitting, is with the aleph. It's called a hoda'ah, a confession. And of course, there's many ways you can start playing around with it, but where do we see the resemblance? You wake up in the morning, you thank Hashem. Modeh ani lefanecha. I thank you for giving me back my soul. That can also be explained as modeh. I admit in front of you that you gave me back my soul. Same thing when we pray Shmona Esrei. Towards the end, we say modim anachnu lach. We thank you. We acknowledge you. Really, in Hebrew, in Lashon Kodesh, in the holy language, modim anachnu lach means we admit in front of you. Shata hu Elokim. That you are the God and nobody else, of course. So thanking and admitting sounds very similar in the holy language. Thanking Hashem is great, but also Hashem likes when we admit. He knows exactly what you did, you can't fool him. Now, if you practice to bring yourself to the level that you are able to admit to people, then by default, you'll be able to admit to the Master of the universe, which you would think that it would work the other way around. That if you can admit to the Master of the universe, then you'll be able to admit to other people. So our sages, not for nothing, they are called chachamim, smart. So they told us, okay, I will give you a mechanism, or I will give you a daily workout, because if you want to get good at something, you have to work out, right? So our sages told us, 3 times a day I'm going to make you work out on admitting. In Shacharit and Mincha and Kriyat Shema Lamita, when we say Ashamnu, Baganu, Gazanu, Dibarnu, Dofi, we admit. This is called Hoda'ah. I know, you call it confession, vidui, but this is admitting. I have sinned. I have spoken Lashon Hara. I have stole. I have thought bad of other people, etc. So you need to understand that when you're saying vidui, when you're saying this confession and admitting is more or less the same level. Once in Shacharit, once in Mincha, and once in Kriyat Shema Lamita. Unless it's Rosh Chodesh like today, and you don't say vidui. Or Shabbat, of course, and many other days that we don't say Tachanun and vidui, which will be holidays, festivals, and some auspicious other days. But most of the time of the year, we do say vidui. We do confess, we do admit. Now, if you're reading it like text, you didn't do anything. If you're doing it with your heart and your soul, then Hashem will actually be impressed and accept it. You can't fool the Master of the universe. You can only fool others and definitely yourself. Now take this exercise that our sages gave us to admit, to learn how to admit. Umodeh al ha'emet. Now look what the verse says, and admitting on the truth. Why, can you admit on not the truth? Yeah, some people admit on something that is not the truth. It's they give you a false testimony. So you have to admit, if you're already admitting, admit on the truth. And the verse goes again. L'olam yeh adam yireh shamayim baseter. A person always should be God-fearing when he's in closed doors. Umodeh al ha'emet. And admit on the truth. So you have two midot here, emet and admitting. They both go together. Now, to bang on your heart in Mincha and Shacharit, you don't have to be so brave. Because we're all banging on the heart. It's not that you are the only one and we're all looking at you. What's going on with him? We all do the same thing. But now, start admitting to other people. To your boss, to your friends, to your wife, to other people. And you know what? When you start admitting, at the end of the day, you don't owe anybody anything. And you don't want to owe anybody anything. Not money, not an apology, not favors. You have to be free of debt. So when you admit, I'm sorry, Mr. So-and-so, I stole money from you. I'm sorry, I spoke bad about you. You admit, be a man. I mean, if you're a woman, be a woman. But you don't want to start now changing genders here. Or saying in any other words that we... for it, or endorsing it. But, it's a term, I'm sure you all know, I'm joking. Be a man. Step forward and say I was wrong. Now admitting, by the way, it's not only when you stole, also when you spoke Lashon Hara about somebody, is when you were wrong. I'm sorry, I was wrong. I behaved the wrong way. I reacted the wrong way. I answered you back in the wrong, most not appropriate way. That's a person with self-respect. And you can also admit that you're wrong to your 3-year-old or your 5-year-old or anybody else. When you're wrong, you admit. It's very hard sometimes to come to your little kid. You have issues. You came home very upset because the bank manager called, you got fired, somebody got you upset on the road, and you come home and your poor punching bag, your kid gets the first punch to the face, of course not physically, but the bark. What did the little kid do? Because you have issues, you're letting it all on your child. You have issues, not your child. So I understand, I'm not judging you now. We all have bad days and you all very easily lose your temper. But at least be a man. Go to your kid after an hour or two. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I had a bad day. I will make it up to you. I'm sorry. It doesn't make you less of an individual or a man if you say, I'm sorry, you're right. Somebody sent me today this funny sticker and it says, you see like an Indian guru sitting like in a, I don't know how you say it in Hebrew, the legs are all flipped and somebody comes and tells him, Master, what is the secret for eternal happiness? So he tells him not to argue with fools. So he says, I disagree with you. He's like, you're right. If you get used to constantly admit on the truth, you will admit for everything wrong that you did, and Hashem will take you serious, by the way. When you come to do tshuva, when you come to ask for forgiveness, you step forward. And it's not only with Hashem. You get used to it with human beings. Eventually your admitting will be sincere with the Master of the universe. But even if we chas v'shalom for 1 second, I'm just saying it so we can elaborate what I'm saying. For 1 second, let's put Hashem aside. Chas v'shalom. Hashem is always in the front and He's number one. But let's say for 1 second I'm focusing on somebody else. Also when you admit to another individual, that's a very, very high level to be able to step forward and to say another person, especially when he's younger, smaller, less in your status, to step forward and to say to another individual, I'm sorry, I was out of line. You're right. And sometimes it's very hard, especially when you are 100% right. But sometimes when you step forward and you admit, you take yourself out of a lot of issues. when you know how to take a step back. So take that as not only as advice, as a way of behaving and conducting yourself, that there's nothing wrong with admitting. It doesn't make you less of an individual when you admit. It actually makes you a 10 times greater individual when you know to admit on the truth. Modeh al ha'emet. And the reason why our sages say Modeh al ha'emet, admitting on the truth, that you shouldn't even think for 1 second to admit on something that is not the truth. It's called giving false testimony. You're not allowed to do that. It's a severe sin from the Torah. Always be God-fearing when nobody's looking at you, when it's you and the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And remember the key. Modeh al ha'emet. Admit when you did something wrong, when you failed, when you were out of line, when you spoke the wrong way, when you insulted. And sometimes it also makes you a greater you when you admit on something, even you are 100%. You're right, honey. You're right. Next time I'll pay attention to my words. You're right. Sir, I will be more careful with my reactions. You are right. Doesn't make you less. Makes you real and smart. And needless to say, elevates you to a level that at some point Hashem actually takes you serious. Good luck with admitting on the truth.